All right, all right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. My special guest tonight is Dr. Jill Stein. She is running for president of the United States through the Green Party. Welcome back, Jill.
Great to be with you, Sabby.
So, Jill, something really cool happened since the Biden and Trump debate. I don't know if everyone saw this, but I want to bring this up here. This is from Newsweek. I was surprised that Newsweek covered this, but they did. Newsweek said that Jill Stein on surge of support after Biden's debate disaster. And they have a picture of Jill there. So, Jill, what do you think happened there? I want to hear a little bit more about this. Like, you did have a surge in the polls. And from what I understand, there's been a surge in support as well for the campaign. What do you think prompted this? Do you think it was Biden's poor performance in the debate? Or do you think it was the fact that you held your own debate after theirs?
Yeah, we had more people tuning into our social media response to the debate than anything else we've ever had. So it was kind of like the horror of the debate. And it wasn't just Biden, I think it was also Trump. It's like, oh my God, these two rather pathetic human beings, really unfortunate, one kind of nursing home patient hiding, a genocider and, a genocider beneath his nursing home veneer. And then Trump's just psychopathic personality and lies, and people were tearing their hair out. Oh my God, the veil is off, fully off on the U.S. election system. And, everybody's hair was on fire after that. And it should be. And in the follow-on, it's like the total focus is all about how dysfunctional is Joe Biden, and is he so dysfunctional that he doesn't even get that he has to drop out, and the Democratic Party is that dysfunctional as well, that they can't figure out, which way is up, and they're completely divided. There's nothing unifying them except money and their big donors. So, there is no there within the election system here of USA. And I think a lot of people were just reeling from the shock of having seen it up close and personal. And we had a bump in the polls of, 1 point something percent. Basically, we won the debate, we won the debate by not being there and, not needing to be there. Actually, they both lost the debate on their own terms, and people are looking around. And I think that hunger continues, and the Democrats continue in their desperation to try to silence us and, wipe us off the face of the ballot landscape by continuing. They have their army of lawyers. They're dragging us into court and trying to waste our money and spend down our resources. They have put job postings for a job manager, or maybe several of them, I don't know, managers of their volunteer infiltrators and spies that they're using to try to mess up our petition drives and our organizations. I'm sure they've been there doing this for quite a while. It's just that they weren't quite so obvious about it. And now the latest development is that they've decided to put a hold on the matching funds. Over a space of 9 minutes, that decision apparently got made, because we got one email from the Federal Election Commission saying that we qualified and the money was on its way. And then 9 minutes later, we got another letter that didn't have letterhead. It was like an email. It was as if someone had been given the word that, nope, you can't do it. It's got to stop. And this was coming from Treasury, which is, again, a Democratic organization. The FEC is allegedly bipartisan. It should be nonpartisan. It should be, totally rebooted with a very different structure, but they at least make a stab at being bipartisan. Not so good if you're not, if you're an independent. Bipartisan is not such a great thing, but the Democrats don't make any pretense, and suddenly from Treasury, apparently the word came down that they couldn't release the money.
Yeah, I'll get to the FEC part in just a second. But one of the things that I said, like when I was watching the debate, is Gee, I sure would have liked to have seen everyone else up on this stage. Like, I think all of you should have been on the stage with Biden and Trump. You yourself, like yourself, RFK Jr., Dr. West, etc. All of you should have been on that stage. And I say that because the American people need to know that they have other options. And
Exactly.
from a lot of people that I spoke to is that they weren't happy with either one. After that debate, they weren't happy with Biden. They weren't happy with Trump. And so I, have informed people that I know that there are other people running, but the vast majority of Americans that did tune into that debate obviously had no idea. But that's exactly the way that CNN wants it. That's the way that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party wants it. They don't want other people, other third party or independent candidates on that stage for people to realize, wait a minute, I have another option, especially considering a time where a lot of people just don't want Biden or Trump again.
Absolutely. It's not as if these are like unknown quantities. People have had lots of experience here. And, in fact, these aren't the debate candidates we need to hear from, because people know who they are and what they're about. It's like the other options. And to deny the American voters knowledge of who their other choices are and what their policy and positions are is really an incredible insult to democracy. So what else is new? That's what this bipartisan system is about. But it really is such a slap in the face. And it's such a disgusting pretense of being a democratic system. The League of Women Voters, quit managing the debates in 1988 when the DNC and the RNC, the committees of both parties, took over the debates and they started managing them. The League of Women Voters quit in disgust, saying that this was a fraud being perpetrated on the American voter, which is definitely true. And, it goes beyond the debates, but it's for sure, it's true of the debates. And we so deserve to have them. People should know that there is an alternative debate to which Trump and Biden were invited, but of course they're not going to go. But all the alternative candidates, were definitely invited as well. And this is the free and equal debate, which is going to be broadcast on social media. Scripps Network is carrying it. There are a couple other actual cable channels that are carrying it, but it's going to be on Rumble. People can go to freeandequal.org to find out. This is on Friday, the 12th, coming up in a couple days, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time. And I really suggest people go and tune in. And I think any candidate that doesn't show up doesn't deserve your consideration. And it's not just Trump and Biden who are ducking. It's also RFK and Cornel West who are ducking. Not just this debate, but all debates. Neither of them will get on a debate stage. Neither of them will actually face critics and explain their policies and defend themselves. Neither of them will do it. And this is like time after time after time. This isn't just this one. It's every time. And in fact, both of them are coming to the event. It's at the Freedom Fest, which is in Las Vegas, Nevada. If I have it right, I think it's Las Vegas. And they're both going to be at the festival. They just can't make it. Well, actually, RFK is going to be there speaking solo immediately before the debate, but he won't participate in the debate.
Why does he get to speak solo? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, he shouldn't. And why are the candidates, the dropouts, the, those who are the chickens, those who are either unable or unwilling to face competitors, why are they given a special out? I don't know, but they both, Cornel West is going to be like on a panel the prior day. He's saying his schedule doesn't allow him to be there the next day, which is, I may have it backwards. I forget whether he's going to be there on Thursday or Friday, but he's on a public panel, like a 3-person panel. So he has another slot where he's not debating. He's not appearing with other candidates. He's just going to be there on a panel discussing, I don't know what, but he gets his moment in the sun at the Freedom Fest, which is supposed to be about democracy. It's supposed to be about our civil liberties. So why are the candidates who are basically, shutting out democracy and refusing to participate in the democratic process of educating voters. Why are they given a special, slot, their special moment in the sun in an uncompetitive way? RFK gets his, I don't know, like a half hour, all of his own to address the, the convention, which I believe is also televised. So it's ridiculous. But in my view, they're shooting themselves in the foot here. They're just really exposing their own timidity, their own, their own unwillingness to participate in the democratic process. I think it is so offensive to voters. Let them do it. Let them blow the whistle on themselves as being afraid, incompetent, who knows what it is, but they will not participate in the debate.
So is this the same organization that hosted the third party debate between where it was you, Claudia de la Cruz, and okay, so this is the same one. I think some of you guys may have seen that when I covered that on the show. There was a third party debate where there were third party candidates that were present. There were libertarian candidates. Claudia de la Cruz was also there from the Party of Socialism and Liberation. Jasmine Sherman was there. And I actually thought that was a really good debate. And I thought it was, I thought I learned a lot from it because you talked about your plans and your goals and what you want to actually accomplish and what we can do, not just necessarily what is wrong. So I really did like that debate, but I didn't see RFK or Dr. West present at that debate.
No, they never do. And there have been many other opportunities, where, there have been many mosques where, there was enormous interest in the anti-genocide candidates, and Cornell will also not participate in those. He will only go solo. It's really ridiculous.
This is very interesting, and that's unfortunate to hear, because the reality is, like, you are running against other people. Like, you're not running by yourself, and it gives off these, I don't know, a certain type of arrogance to me, a certain type of arrogance vibe, because I sat there and I saw RFK Jr. have his own solo debate at the same time as the presidential debate. And so to me, it's like, if you can do that, then you can get on the debate stage and debate with the other third party, and independent candidates. It seemed like to me, like there was all this fuss about, I want to be on the debate stage with Biden and Trump, but you're not willing to be on the debate stage with the other third party and independent candidates. So that comes across to me as some type of ego that I don't really like.
It is weird because we talk about the establishment candidates as being a political elite. They are a political elite, and they will not participate in a broader democratic process. So then you have other supposedly independent candidates who are their own political elites, and they want their own moment in the sun, and they won't actually participate in democracy themselves. It's very sad. And, thinking about what just went on in Europe, basically, in France, where how was the right, extreme right, the neo-fascists, how are they beaten back? Well, first of all, it's the neoliberals that create the neo-fascist movement. And we see that all over the world and in this country. So it's the neo-fascists who are actually it's the neoliberals with their programs of austerity, their privatization of public resources, their huge tax giveaways to the wealthy. That is what drives, the rise of the right wing. And we've certainly seen that in this country with the surge towards Trump after the Wall Street bailouts in 2008 and the crash of the economy and NAFTA and the offshoring of our jobs. There's been a surge to the right. Thank you, neoliberal Democrats, for that. So they have really contributed here to their own demise in the making. And then the flip side of that, it's when the left could get together around a bigger vision and not just their own, boosting their own numbers and their own thing, when they could actually collaborate and work together. That's how they beat the right. Now, what does that say to us right now? Because we too have a fascist problem. It's not just Democrats. It's not just Republicans. It is Democrats as well. We have a problem of rising fascism within both parties, very much. And how is the left going to respond to that? And it's so critical that we join forces. I mean, I think what happened in France really should be throwing down the gauntlet now for the left to do a rethink here, and for the parties and the candidates to be sitting down and thinking, well, how can we be strategic? How can we make the most of this very dangerous moment that we're in? How could we repeat the success that's going on in France right now?
Right. And I'll be talking about that later on tonight. But that coalition that came together in France should be a lesson to everybody here in the United States. And to be honest with you, Jill, I think part of the reason why we don't have that coalition in this country is because I think some of the people that say they want change don't really want change. I think some of these people, they're just talking behind a keyboard, but when push comes to shove, they'll be the ones that try to convince people to go against any type of change or any type of disruption. And with change, you do need to have some type of disruption. I hope everybody understands that. For all the people who want to bring up the civil rights movement and use that as an example, there was disruption during the civil rights movement, and that's how you bring about that change. So,
and I think we need both. I mean, we need disruption on all quarters. We need disruption in the street, and we also need disruption in the halls of power. And we have to challenge power as part of this. Otherwise, the social movements will continue to be sidelined. They have to get traction. They have to, make demands, as Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. That demand needs to be in the social movements, and it also needs to be very explicit in the halls of power. Who is running the show and who are they accountable to? And right now it's Wall Street and the war machine. And I think this calls for leadership, at all levels, leadership in the street, leadership in our communities. And for those who are running for office, what are you running for? Are you running to advance your own career, or are you running to actually help us pull back from the brink? Because we're at the brink right now. And it's not just, oh my God, Trump might be elected, or oh my God, Biden might be elected. It's also that the climate is in complete meltdown. The wars are going completely off the charts right now. The escalation of conflict around the Middle East. RFK says he's not, he's a peace candidate, except for Israel and Gaza. It's that same old, peace except for Palestine. RFK is a peace candidate, except for that thing, which I think is why he won't get on the stage with us, because we're going to point that out. I'm going to point that out. At any rate, we're in really desperate straits right now. And I don't think, not to mention that 500,000 or maybe 1 million people are going to die this month from starvation in Gaza. We need a united front to stand up to this. We should not be dividing, the power of the left right now. And you can't enforce that, but you would expect people to see the bigger picture here in the same way that they did in France. You have this green left coalition in France. And from what I understand, they also collaborated with, the
Communist Party.
Well, absolutely the Communist Party, but also with the neoliberals, who agreed that one or the other of them would drop out in three-way races, so that it would only be one of the two of them, whichever one was leading, they were going to consolidate behind in order to fight the right wing. So this was a very interesting collaboration where people were able to really put, broader social emergency ahead of their own partisan stuff. And we very badly, need to go back to the drawing boards here and do the same thing. It's also the climate. It's the climate. It's the wars on two fronts, which could be going nuclear, are definitely potentially at risk for that right now. And not to mention the economy and 50% of people who rent their housing right now are at risk for eviction, basically, are really financially stressed, miss one or two paychecks and you're out. So we are really living crisis in virtually every dimension of our lives right now. We don't have time to play around, and there's no doubt about what direction we're going. Things are absolutely unraveling right now, and business as usual is not going to solve it for us. And we need a unified left.
I hear you. And I want to bring up this statement here from the FEC for those who were wondering. The FEC declared Jill Stein and her principal campaign committee eligible to receive public matching funds for her 2024 presidential campaign for the Green Party nomination. But to Jill's point, so a lot of us that saw this, we were very excited. Like, yeah, that's great for your party. It really is. But then, as you mentioned earlier, then you were told that they're not going to give the funds to you.
Well, they said that it will be delayed. So it is still possible that we'll get it. But we have urgent needs if we are going to continue our ballot drives. Right now, we are the only pro-worker, anti-war, anti-genocide, climate emergency campaign that is on the ballot right now for a majority of voters. And typically that has been the respected criterion for entry into debates. So by that criteria, because we are on the ballot for a majority of voters, we could, in theory, win the Electoral College at this point. We should be in all the debates. That's great. But in order to really be heard, in order not to be marginalized and sidelined, which they're going to try to do anyhow, and which they've been doing up until now, we need to be on the ballot in all states, or just about all states. And we're on track to do that. But now that we don't have money, we really need to crowdsource this campaign urgently. We are about to get on the ballot in Oklahoma, but we have to raise $35,000 in the next 5 days, which is absolutely doable, but we need people to throw down, to go to jillstein2024.com and make a contribution right now so that we can add yet another state. There are several more turn-ins happening this month. So you have to be on a schedule. You can't delay when you're doing ballot access. You have to be on the schedule. And so this was a very convenient way for the Democrats to basically throw a monkey wrench into our rising power here in this election. That's absolutely what's going on. And we badly need people to stand up and say, over my dead body. We are not going to shut down the one anti-genocide, anti-war, climate emergency, pro-worker campaign that's actually on the ballot already for a majority and on track to be on the ballot across the country for all voters.
And you're the one candidate, too, that's on the ballot in most states that also has a reparations platform, a real one, because the one that RFK Jr. has is not a reparations platform. I read that to the show. So just I wasn't aware he even pretended to have a reparations platform, because he certainly doesn't talk reparations. No, it's true. Now, one thing I want to show you as well, Jill, I'm not sure if you saw this, but obviously there's a lot of rumbling that's happening behind the scenes. Well, now it's kind of been made public, but it was happening behind the scenes within the Democratic Party, where politicians are calling for Joe Biden to step down. Mm-hmm. One of those politicians that came forward publicly is Seth Moulton. Now, this is hilarious. I'm going to show you this because for guys who are not aware, Seth Moulton, he's a representative from Massachusetts in Congress. He is not progressive. He is not he's a milquetoast establishment Democrat of all people. So he is not like a squad-like figure or anything like that. And he came forward publicly to call for Joe Biden to step down. I want to play this clip.
Behind the scenes, trying to talk to people in the White House, in the inner circle, trying to convey the concerns that myself and many of my colleagues and many of my constituents share, that he may not be the best choice to take on Donald Trump and ensure we win in November. But when those behind the scenes conversations didn't work, I decided it was time to go public with the concerns that so many of us Democrats share.
Yeah. And by the way,
so that's Seth Moulton, And there's another one. I don't know why Massachusetts always tends to be first, but it happens because my governor, Maura Healey, came out publicly asking Joe Biden to drop out. Again, she is not progressive. She's another establishment Democrat. I've had many criticisms about Maura Healey because she's definitely corporations first. But she has also made this public demand for Joe Biden to step down. And I want to get your opinion about that. There seems to be this split between Democrat politicians that want Joe Biden to drop out, and those that say, no, he is our candidate. Let's just stick with him. How do you feel about that?
Personally, I don't care, to tell you the truth. And if they substitute somebody else, it's going to be a younger Joe Biden who, may not have a movement disorder or whatever else is going on with Biden, cognitive decline. They may not have it, but they don't have what it takes. They do not have the public interest at heart. They're still going to be creatures of their big donors on Wall Street and the war machine. They're not for us. And I don't mind Biden being the face of the Democratic Party because it really is a mask off moment, for the Democratic Party. To me, it really doesn't matter. I regard the Democrats as every bit as dangerous as the Republicans. Malcolm X, said that it's basically, what is it? It's the fox that's more dangerous than the wolf, I think, something like that, because you can't see it coming. You can't see the danger coming, because of this pretense that they're your friend. They're really not your friend. They're not your friend whatsoever. And yeah, we got fascism to worry about, but we got fascism right now when a political party is throwing their competitors off the ballot. The Democrats are so clueless that they actually celebrate their announcement that they hired an army of lawyers to throw competitors off the ballot. How clueless is that? And then they publicly advertise for spies and infiltrators. It's just, it's pathetic that this is an anti-democratic party. It's not a democratic party. The name needs to be changed. We shouldn't even pretend. Who is behind Cop Cities? It's a Democratic city council in Atlanta. Who's behind the violence of the New York City cops? Mayor Adams, is, he's calling out the cops on the students and the protesters. Extremely violent, horrific. They're training with the IDF, the Israeli occupation forces, and they are shutting down our freedom of speech, our right to protest in an extremely brutal way, destroying academic freedom. How can we have a foreign policy when we can't even debate that foreign policy? And it's declared anti-Semitic for anyone to even raise questions about what Israel is doing, which is just so incredibly off the charts. I hope everyone will turn out on July 24th to, conduct a citizen's arrest, I hope, for Bibi Netanyahu. It's absolutely outrageous that this vicious war criminal is being invited to address Congress. But of course, Congress is, they're war criminals right along with him. They are providing him weapons and funding him. And, they tolerate no dissent within their own ranks either. It's, they're passing these laws that essentially, criminalize dissent about the war and that vilify the protesters against Zionist genocide being conducted by Zionists. Let me be clear. I am a Jew by, background, by upbringing. And when I was growing up, it was right after the Holocaust, after the Second World War. And it was a very big deal in the Jewish community. And I was attending, a Reform synagogue, going to religious school every week. It was a very big deal. How do we come to terms with genocide? How we came to terms with genocide was by resolving that genocide, is a crime against humanity for those who commit it and for those who are bystanders. You cannot be a bystander to genocide. So that means it wasn't just Jews that we were taught could not have genocide again. It wasn't anybody. who could have genocide committed against them. And, it's very unfortunate that some people, are still blinded by this ethnic nationalism, which is extremely dangerous, and, have this really vicious mindset, which is essentially out to ethnically cleanse and kill as need be, Palestinians for occupying the land that the Zionists claim is their own. It's so important, I think, for there to be discussion about this, because many Jews were raised on the old information and the old history prior to the revelations, when the Israeli National Archives were opened up, and it became very clear then at that point that Zionism from the get-go was a plan for ethnic cleansing and a plan of basically terrorizing Palestinians in order to drive them out. So this was long part of the plan, and everybody, Jews especially, but many Jews are on absolutely the right side of this issue and are helping to lead the charge against the genocide. But there are many who are anchored in this old and kind of obsolete understanding of the history of Zionism. So there needs to be dialogue here. There absolutely needs to be.
Right. Most Jewish people that I know do not agree with what's happening to the Palestinian people at all. At all. And
Absolutely.
I think corporate media they're trying to do their best to bring forth the voices of those that do agree with it, or are willing to, I guess, try to downplay what the IDF has done to the Palestinian people. And this goes back to before October 7th. Like, this did not start on October 7th. I started talking about this the very first year that I started this show. So the bombings, the attacks, like, this has been an ongoing issue. It's just that it became more popular after October 7th because that was, Hamas fighting back at Israel, right? So that made like world news, like international news, and Netanyahu tweeted out, "We are at war." But the Palestinian people have been occupied, they've been held captured, they've been given, dirty water. Israel controls all the resources. Like, these people have been treated like animals for decades. Like, this has gone on for a long time. And I think a lot of people, until October 7th, a lot of people had no idea this was going on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's been totally kind of kept under wraps, again, by collusion of mainstream media with our kind of U.S. political agenda, the agenda of empires, that we don't talk about this. And we don't look at what the, apartheid state of Israel has been doing from even before it was founded. And massacres are not new. There have been massacres conducted from before the founding of the state of Israel. Witness, for example, the famous bombing of the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, which was undertaken by one of the, Israeli terror groups. I think it was the Irgun. I'm not sure if it was them, but it was one of these terror groups that then went on to become the government of Israel. And, 100 people were killed, largely Europeans, as part of that bombing to basically clear the leadership, to get Britain out, to get the UK out of controlling Palestine, and so that the Zionists could basically declare independence for the state of Israel. But that was just one example. There were some 500 villages, I think, that were destroyed or burned, or taken over, that took place even before the Nakba, from what I understand. So this has been absolutely devastating from the get-go. And there have been now so many assaults on Palestinians. This is like in the West Bank, and none of them go investigated or looked at. In fact, the Israeli occupation forces, they show up and they basically safeguard the settlers while they assault and murder and steal the homes of Palestinians in the West Bank. So it's just, it's just gut-wrenching to watch from day to day. Today there was a big bombing on a soccer game in Gaza. I don't know how many were killed, but there's footage out there, live footage of this happening, and it's like, how can this be allowed to continue. It's just unbelievable when all it takes is a phone call from Joe Biden. Joe Biden isn't going to make that phone call unless we force him to make that phone call. And until the U.S. begins to withhold weapons and support, it's very unlikely that Israel is going to comply. They're not going to comply unless, and I don't mean all of Israel, because a lot of Israel is now calling for a ceasefire as well, and return of the hostages, which can happen with a ceasefire. That's, been the most successful time for the return of hostages when there were ceasefires. And Israelis are really now turning out in whole new numbers, calling for a ceasefire. But Netanyahu is not going to go quietly, and he's got nuclear weapons. So it's definitely going to take the U.S. using its clout and its influence here, which can happen very easily. It's as easy as a phone call. Or we could simply comply with U.S. law, which says that it is illegal to be giving weapons and military aid to any country that is interfering with the delivery of humanitarian aid, any country that is violating human rights, and any country that is also violating nuclear weapons treaties, which Israel is. It is in defiance of the Non-Proliferation Treaty by having nuclear weapons itself. So there are three major reasons of law why it is actually illegal to continue transferring weapons. But, once Israel actually moved ahead with its invasion of Rafah, which has been, just unbelievably devastating and horrific, Biden had said, well, maybe he would withhold weapons if Israel went ahead and invaded Rafah. What did he do? He rewarded Israel with another $18 billion worth of F-15 fighter jets at taxpayer expense. It's just jaw-dropping what is happening here. And it's not just horrible for Palestinians, it's also horrible for Israelis, because it's really mobilizing their neighbors against them, who have a whole lot of, weapons and armed forces between Hezbollah. Jordan is getting very pissed off. People are, getting out in large rallies calling for the peace treaty with Israel to be torn to shreds. And Iran could easily be dragged into this, which is what, Israel's really trying to do. They're kind of going for a wider war here because Netanyahu does not want this to end. So this is on us. This is on us. And I keep encouraging people to make this a reason to get on the ballot so that we have an anti-genocide, anti-war campaign, which is on the ballot for every voter. That is going to really, be a huge shot across the bow of the Democrats and Biden, that we have the power, we have the numbers, we just need that political traction.
That's right, because both Donald Trump and Joe Biden support the war. Everyone has to understand that. Some people seem to have some type of misconception earlier on that because Donald Trump said that he would end it, but then obviously during the debate, he made that very clear what he meant about ending it. So I don't know if people just seem to have forgotten, because he did make it very clear, like during his presidency. Remember, he's the one that moved the Capitol. That happened under his presidency. So I think people just need to definitely vote your conscience. Vote your conscience, and don't buy into the fear mongering of, if you vote third party or independent, we're going to get Donald Trump. Look, the reality is, and this is what I honestly believe, even if you weren't in this race, let's say you, RFK, Dr. West, none of you were in this race, I still think that Joe Biden would have this problem. I still think it would be this close between the two, because people are just so angry, and not just Gaza, but also because of economic reasons, where people are still dealing with inflation. The grocery prices are still incredibly high from what I've seen, and people just aren't given a living wage. There's been a number of companies that have laid off hundreds of workers. As much as Joe Biden brags about his job numbers, a lot of people are being laid off. The homeless rate has increased by 25% under his presidency. And these are the things, of course, he's not going to tell you, because these aren't selling points. It doesn't make you want to go and vote for him. But I do have a question for you, Jill, about Biden. His cognitive ability. You're a medical doctor. Obviously, you would have to give him a full examination. But based on your observation, what do you think could be possibly happening to President Biden?
So there are many causes of cognitive decline. But I think what we have seen with, the common, garden variety causes of cognitive decline, include Alzheimer's disease. They also include strokes. Just having vascular disease in your brain can cause kind of subclinical stroke. So you don't actually see someone getting paralyzed, but they're losing their ability to to think well, to remember, their cognitive capacity just goes downhill. And we've seen him really decline. We've also seen him kind of develop this movement disorder. He doesn't walk very well, and he's kind of slow and halting. His facial expressions are also very muted now. That's kind of a characteristic of Parkinson's disease. You can never say without examining and then doing a bunch of tests and brain scans and stuff like that. You can never say what the cause is, but it's clear just from being an observant human being, it's clear that he is on a downhill course, a very definitive downhill course. And his ability to think clearly and remember things and communicate is highly variable. Sometimes he can do it and many times he can't. And you don't want your president to not be awake when they get the call in the middle of the night that there's some potential nuclear emergency or something. What are they going to do? You don't want someone who only operates, 9 to 5. And Biden even said the other day that he had to limit his work hours. He had to start, giving himself evenings off. You can't have a president that's not 24/7, So he has said as much himself, and I think his kind of his dysfunction around this decision is another indication that he's just not up to the job. He really cannot say why he should stay in the job or why he would be reliable and qualified in the job. He just says, I have to give it my all. Well, that's not what that's not the yardstick for president. It's not like having done a college try. It's one should be very worried about the very taxing circumstances that a president has to meet. And if one was in full possession of their faculties, they would be thinking long and hard about Biden's track record and what that implies going forward. There's no way he's capable of this job. So he shouldn't be in it. But, it's clear he probably hasn't been in it for quite a while, and that it's these unaccountable appointments who are making decisions for him. And they're every bit as bad as he is. They will be there really no matter who the Democrat is. So I don't really think that things are going to somehow improve suddenly because somebody else is going to be, occupying that position. I think we all need to look at this election like our lives are on the line. It's not just democracy that's on the line, it's our lives are really on the line. And we really need to stand up and fight for a system change here that can put everyday people in charge instead of the war machine and Wall Street and big donors who are basically running the show. And your lesser evil here, good luck figuring out which one is the lesser evil. And if you can figure it out, it's not as though the lesser evil is going to save us. The politics of fear has delivered everything we were afraid of. You can't simply absent yourself from the communications, from the dialogue, and think that that's going to work. Like Frederick Douglass says, power concedes nothing without a demand. We have to be in this discussion, making the demand for what it is that we need. We need a $25 an hour living wage. We need federal rent control. We need a common floor for K through 12 schools across the country. It shouldn't depend on how expensive the housing is in your community. Schools should be equitably funded across the board. We need to make public higher education free and abolish student debt. We need to deal with the climate crisis. Good God. It was 128 degrees in Death Valley a day or two ago, and we're not at the end of this. We've just gotten started here. 1,400 people died in Mecca couple of weeks ago on their pilgrimage from just heat exposure. The monkeys are falling from the trees in the Yucatan. We are not in a world that's going to last very long left to the Democrats and Republicans. We need an America and a world that's working for all of us, not working just for the big donors who are funding these parties. We need to get outside of the duopoly. We need to break the duopoly, not in any old way like RFK would do. We need to break the duopoly with our values and our principles and with a real sense of democracy. That's how we need to go forward. And that's really the only hope. So I think, we need to go for broke here. We need to really stand up for what it is that we need and not pretend that lesser evilism is going to somehow solve this problem. Our lives are on the line. We need to forget the lesser evil, fight for the greater good, like our lives depend on it, because in fact they do. We can fix this. There are real solutions here, which are as simple as us standing up and just saying no to the politicians and the pundits who are trying to talk you out of your values, and your vote. They don't own your vote. You own your vote. Politicians have to earn your vote, and they haven't. And don't pretend that they have, because they're just trying to suck you into more of the same. We can't go on this way. We really need to stand up and insist on a world that's going to work for us. And I encourage people to go to JillStein2024.com and let's make this happen. This is it. It's showtime, people.
All right, Jill, thank you so much for your time.